Hey Hexers, now that we've built an amazing deck, let's go play a match. You will start out on your home screen. Click the play button on the navigation bar. You can click on tournaments to play in constructed, booster draft, or sealed deck events for prizes. First though, I would like to give my Evil Bunnies deck a test drive before I take it to the tournament. So, let's go to the Proving Grounds where we can play pickup matches against other players or play the AI. We've made it to the Proving Grounds. Now that we're here, you can see all the games being played on your left, as well as a list of available opponents to your right. If you're shy, you can hit the Play Game button and the system will find you an opponent. Or, you can hit Play AI and play against the computer. If you want to challenge an available player directly, just hit the challenge button next to their name. Select your deck, and then hit Send Challenge and wait for them to accept. When you start a game, the first thing you will see is the epic coin flip. If you win the coin flip, you get the option to either play first or draw first. Assuming I win, I like to play first because I immediately get into the action and play my cards. Now we're in our match. I have my deck on the right, my champion, Monica Shin, on the left, and I've drawn my opening hand. I have an aggressive deck, so I want to play troops early and often. Without at least 2 resources in my hand, it will be difficult to make sure I have 1 resource to play each turn. If I have more than 3 resources in my hand, I may not have enough troops to keep pressure on my opponent. It is also important that I have a good resource curve in my hand. This means that I will have cards to play each turn. So ideally, I want a card to play on turns 1, 2, and 3. You have the option to mulligan. This means I can draw a hand with 1 card fewer, so in this case, 6 cards. This looks like a good mix of cards, so I'll keep it. I have my 3 resources with plenty of cards to play early on. It's our first turn and we're in our main phase. The first thing you want to do every turn is play a shard if you have one. When I play this wild shard, it will add 1 resource to my resource pool, provide me 1 wild threshold, and charge my champion. The right number on the resource pool is your maximum number of resources. The left number is how many available resources you have left to spend. Any resources you don't spend on your turn are carried over to your opponent's turn. At the beginning of your next turn, your available resources are replenished. Let's look at this basic action, Runs of the Litter. If you remember from the deck building video, each card has a resource cost as well as a threshold requirement that needs to be met. Since we have 1 available resource and 1 wild threshold, we can play it. Going back to your hand, when your cards are highlighted with an orange border, that means you have the requirements to play them this turn. When you play the card, it will appear on the right side of your screen in the chain. My opponent is then given a chance to respond, and if they don't, then Runs the Litter goes through and I receive my 2 battle hoppers. Basic actions like our Runs of the Litter can only be played during your turn when the chain is empty. The same goes for troops. Quick cards like Quick Actions and Quick Troops can be played at any time. And we'll talk more about the chain in depth later. As stated before, playing resources also charges your champion. When Monica gains 3 charges and I have met the requirement of 1 wild threshold, I can use her charge power to put a battle hopper into play. I chose her because she will help me overwhelm my opponent faster by creating more bunnies for my army. And look, a free battle hopper. A few turns have passed and now I want to show you the attack step, so let's get in there. As always, let's start with playing a resource. I meet the requirements of resources and threshold this turn to play the Shinhair Eulogist. I want to play him before I attack for reasons you will see in a bit. Now that I have played the Eulogist and completed my first main phase, it is time to declare an attack on our opponent and initiate combat. First, I have to declare attackers by selecting the troops I can attack with. I'm going to attack with the Samurai as well as the Blood Cauldron Ritualist. So now I'll click attack and then both cards will exhaust. The attacking troop cards are highlighted by the blue border. I can't choose my Shinhair Eulogist because troops can't attack the turn they come into play. You can see the blue light shows that my troops are attacking the opposing champion. So now that I have chosen my attackers, my opponent can decide which troop they will use to block. They can also choose for multiple blockers to gain up on a single attacker. The red lines signify who is blocking whom. In between each step of combat, you and your opponent can play any quick actions or any powers on troops. So now I will activate my Blood Cauldron Ritualist, sacrificing my Battle Hopper to him after my opponent has declared blockers, but before damage is dealt. The Ritualist has now grown in size and will stomp my opponent's troop. Okay, perfect. Everything went as planned. Because I was able to power up my troop in between the steps of combat, I was able to successfully lure them into killing both of their blockers. Also, because the samurai died during combat, the Eulogist stats increased again. After the attack phase is over, you will have a second main phase where you can play all of your cards, including troops and basic actions before ending your turn. So as I continued to play, I came across a perfect situation to show blocking. I have a nice array of troops on my field here to block with, so let the flames of battle commence. He has 2 troops on the field he is attacking with. First is Shame Gladiator. He is socketed with a gem that only allows artifact troops and blood troops to block him. I don't want to throw both my blood troops at him just to trade, so I'll allow his 2 damage through. The second is another nasty troop, Darkspire Priestess. If she dies this turn, one of 2 things will happen. She will either deal an additional 3 damage to my champion, or my opponent will be able to search for another troop with Darkspire in their name and add it to his hand. Since I can only block the Priestess, I'm going to put my Shroomshaw in her way. Shroomshaw is awesome, because when he dies, I will get an additional 2 Battle Hoppers on my board. I can click the troop and drag the shield symbol with the red line over the Priestess to show that I have chosen to block her. I click block and let combat resolve. The Gladiator's damage went through, and our Shroomshaw died, but we got an additional 2 bunnies. Their Priestess also died, and we didn't take an additional 3 damage. So, we know my opponent pulled another card with Darkspire in its name from his deck. And there it is. My opponent was able to play their new Priestess in the second main phase. I love TCGs because they are about combat and using your planning, skill, and smarts to win. Real-time interaction and reaction is one of the foundations of what makes HEX unique. During my opponent's turn, they played Burn. On the right side of the screen is where the chain appears. When I mouse over their Burn card, I can see that it is targeting my Hop Hero Samurai. And I cannot let this guy die because he can become super powerful and transform into an even larger bunny. So I need to save him. Luckily, I have the ability to play cards during my opponent's turn, and even luckier, I have a quick action in my hand. Wild Aura is going to give Hop Hero a permanent +2 in both attack and defense, as well as Crush, which will make him a 3/3, and the burn damage of 2 will not kill him. Before I click Resolve Burn, I'm going to play it on Hop Hero. Now that I have played the quick action, it will show up in the chain on the right. When I hover over both cards, you can see that they are both targeting the Samurai. Because Wild Aura is the last link in the chain, it will resolve first and buff my Samurai. Okay, now he's a 3/3 and the opponent's burn resolves, dealing 2 damage, but my Hop Hero lives. This game has been going very well for me, so while I finish off my opponent, let me explain to you how to win a game. There are a couple of ways to win your game. Most games will be won when a player takes the opposing champion to 0 health, but games can be won when an opposing player has an empty deck and must draw a card. You will also lose when your match timer goes to 0. You'll have to think and act fast. I've won, and the game shows me this epic victory screen in celebration. If this is a single game match, you will go back to the lobby. If this is a best of 3 match, you will be provided 2 minutes to adjust your deck with your reserves. For more information on reserves, please watch the deck building video. That was a freaking epic match. If you want to learn more, visit www.hextcg.com. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you all in Entrath.